Okay.
I'll just let you do the intros and
Yeah.
it'll be easier that
Okay.
way.
Okay. All right, guys. What's up? Hello, everybody. We are almost ready to go back into the gym. Welcome to another episode of Buried Under the Bar with my big homie here, Robin Strand, and myself, Mike Barnes. I'm just going to say it now just before we get too much into this. Make sure you follow and subscribe to the video. Follow Robin Strand at Strand Strong. Is that Strand Strong, right? On Instagram, and myself, musclecoach.mike on Instagram. And make sure you like the video and let us know in the comments if you like the video or if there's something that you want us to talk about or any tips, advice, whatever you want. Whatever you think we could benefit from, put it in the comments and let us know.
Definitely.
So today we're going to talk, Rob, about what? Rest today, right? Rest period?
Yeah, so for me anyways, I didn't train today because today is a scheduled rest day. I figured it'd be a great topic to kind of go over because there's so many subtopics that have to do with rest and recovery, right? So
good. So yeah, I was wondering about that too. I'm just like, this might end up being a debate. I don't know if you take rest days, how you feel about them. I know myself in previous preps, like you just get so addicted to the process and like wanting to be your best that you sometimes forget to take rest days. At least I have before. You're just like, no, I need to get better. And it can actually hurt you, in my opinion. I don't know how you feel about that or what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about me as a competitor, I'm very competitive, obviously. When I'm doing my competition preps, I usually only take one day off per week.
Mm-hmm.
And I also used to do that for my off season, and I feel like that's one of the things that maybe held me back. I didn't take enough rest days when I was trying to actually grow muscle tissue.
Right.
So I think 6 days on a prep is okay.
100%.
You probably shouldn't even start there. You should probably work your way up to that.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't ever recommend doing 7 days a week. I think you still need a full day off at least once a week, even during a really hard prep. And that's coming from someone who's like extreme with things, right? So just what I've learned. And when you're trying to build muscle, you have to look at who you are as a person. If you don't build muscle very easily, like an ectomorph, you should probably only be training 3 to 4 times a week, especially if you're a beginner. If you're someone who's a little bit more intermediate, someone who builds muscle a little bit easier, I think you can do 5 days a week, and that would be perfect, because that's what I'm doing now. And I find that 5 days a week satisfies my craving to train, but it also gives me 2 rest days a week where I'm focused on nothing but growing.
Good points there, because I never even considered that too. Like that's not something I thought about, whether like your body type. But you also mentioned too, like it gives your brain a rest, because I think a lot of people forget that. Like cognitively, you can fatigue too, even though your muscles are okay. Like you just start getting really just bored. You're not focused when you're in there. Those are also signs that, yeah, either A, you need to change up your workout program, or maybe it's time to take a rest.
Yep.
I think so. What I wanted to say, like a big thing that I want to say is, I think the paradigm needs to be shift for rest days, and it needs to be considered a recovery day. Because a rest day isn't a day off. It's not a day where you're just like, I'm not going to the gym today, so it's just a fucking free for all. I'm gonna eat like fucking shit. I just won't do shit. I'll party. Like nothing can hurt your training more. I know, like when I've had days where I've drank, and the next day your workout is fucking trash. Like I'm weak, I'm lazy, like I don't want to be there. It's just a fucking horrible time. So your rest days, like I said, is not a day off. Especially if you're an athlete, a rest day needs to have purpose. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think you should be going to the gym and lifting anything, because then it would not be a rest day anymore. But looking at an example like what I do on my rest days is I'm still doing cardio in the morning. I'm still doing 30 minutes every morning, even on rest days, and I'm still going for an evening walk. And I don't feel like that's going to tap into my recovery at all. I think that maybe will help, if anything. So doing some cardio on your rest day, I still think it's a rest day if you're doing cardio on your rest day
Yeah.
or your recovery day. But you're right about the recovery day still being important to consider, like certain things that you can still do to actually improve your recovery. So, things like foam rolling, things like stretching, things like meditation, things like breathing, things like going for walks, things like going in the sun, making sure you're hydrated, making sure you're staying in a parasympathetic state. So, all these things to consider on your recovery day, which will definitely translate into better performance when you go into the gym the next day.
Yeah, well, you said cardio, but cardio, I don't really consider cardio is okay too, because cardio will get your blood flowing and carry blood to the muscles that are damaged still, right? Help them repair, bring the nutrients there. So cardio is actually something that I would recommend on an off day or a rest day. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like, don't kill yourself on a rest day. What are some other things that you do on your rest days? And then I'll share some of mine.
Okay, so I kind of wanted to go over foam rolling and stretching,
Okay.
if you don't mind,
Yeah, let's do it.
because I did look into some research, a little bit into foam rolling and stretching, as well as what I was basically given in terms of studies to look at when I was doing school on this. So talking about foam rolling and stretching, in my opinion, I think that it can definitely have a place in an off day as a way to prepare yourself the next day. Um, and basically what I'll do now is kind of go over and summarize what the literature says. So talking first about foam rolling, like why would someone want to foam roll? That's probably the first question you should ask. What is my goal with foam rolling
Mm.
before I start doing it? So foam rolling essentially is thought to improve muscle performance and flexibility, as well as to alleviate muscle fatigue or the perception of soreness. So looking at 21 different studies on foam rolling and performance, what the findings was that foam rolling before doing sprints resulted in a small but measurable improvement in sprint performance and flexibility, while the effect on jump and strength performance was basically nothing. So there's a small but measurable difference in sprint performance, but there was no increase in performance doing foam rolling before strength training or jump training. Now,
Uh,
talking about foam rolling after sprints, they did find that it can reduce the feelings of delayed onset muscle soreness, but the actual performance increase by doing foam rolling after sprints might only be very, very slight. Um, and the consensus basically with the scientific community anyways, is that foam rolling is more of a warm-up activity rather than a recovery tool. So,
Hang on a second. Sorry.
yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, you know, considering that, like when we're talking about is it a good recovery tool, science does not really seem to think so.
Mhm.
However, in my experience, I think that doing some foam rolling is definitely better than sitting on your butt. Um,
Okay.
and then the other thing is just talking about stretching. So again, you got to ask yourself, what's the goal from doing this stretch? Before you can use stretching effectively, you have to realize that it's not just something that is going to elongate a muscle. It's also going to change the way a muscle can fire by influencing the Golgi apparatus tendon. But I think that generally for stretching, I think it can be useful, again, just like foam rolling. Um, Based on the literature, they basically have stated that all people 65 years or older should be incorporating a static stretching program. But for most of us, it's not necessary that we need static stretching. And again, it's something that you kind of have to include in your routine based uh, on a by needs basis, right?
hmm
So,
So you said most of us, and I kind of feel like, okay, so here's my thing on that. Maybe for most people, yeah, you don't have to do as much stretching. I think that you can get a lot of stretching actually from your actual workout. Like in a deadlift, that bottom position is a stretched position.
mhm.
Um, in a squat, there is some stretching that you're going to get through your glutes. So in certain positions, like in a lunge, you're going to stretch hip flexors. In certain positions, for certain muscles, I think you're still getting a stretch in the workout if you're doing it properly. And that's actually probably the best way to get the stretch. It's more functional, if that makes any sense. But I still think bodybuilders should do static stretching. And the reason why I say that is because so many people that I've seen and know, they lose so much of their workout because they can't get in the proper position. And then when it comes to posing, they suffer from their posing as well. Right.
I disagree, but continue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then I know from even myself, I got way stronger when I stretched, but not stretching before your workout. Obviously, this is stretching on your off days or after your workout. Stretching, I found it helped for sure. I was just able to carry through a longer rep. Right. I could lengthen out that rep because I could get into the proper position. Mind you, like stretching too much, especially for a bodybuilder, you're lifting this heavy weight, it can leave you susceptible to injury if you overdo it. But I think there should definitely still be some stretching in there.
Yeah, I think that post-workout stretching, because it's definitely, a reality that when you do train, especially when you're training very intensely, when you're contracting and you're essentially tearing those muscle fibers, when they do repair, they are repairing slightly shorter every single time you damage them. So essentially every time you train, and that's why you go into the gym and, you could have trained chest 5 days ago, you go into the gym to train chest and your chest is tight because it's repaired itself effectively, making it slightly, shorter muscle fiber. So I think that static stretching can help in an acute way. I don't think that it can help in a chronic way. But I do think that if you're like, where I disagree with you on the other point about that person who is struggling in their training because they can't get a full range of motion and they're not able to pose properly. I think that what they would probably benefit from more is doing muscle activation techniques. That's fine. We'll edit that out.
Yeah, they were. There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
So, all right. So, just talking about where I disagree with you, using the example of a client or someone who's training but has a hard time getting through a full range of motion with certain exercises, or has, lacking control in certain exercises, in certain ranges of an exercise, or someone who just can't seem to fully pose properly, not able to open up and pose properly. I think that they would benefit from two things: using muscle activation techniques, or MAT. You can Google that, just MAT, or muscle activation techniques, or ELDOA, which is ELDOA, and you can Google that as well. ELDOA, ELDOA, which is very similar to like a myofascial stretch, but you're using contraction, active contraction, rather than, basically it's an active muscle activation stretch.
So it's almost like a PNF.
No, it's not like a PNF at all, actually, because you're not increasing your range of motion passively, but you're contracting muscles to align your body the way it needs to be aligned to do the exercises properly. So basically, like, because I'm not super well versed in like the science behind ELDOA, but I've been practicing it for 3 years, and I can honestly tell you that it definitely improves flexibility, posture, and can relieve pain that you have in your joints, in your spine, pretty much anywhere in your body. So there's like all these different poses that you do with ELDOA, which it's very similar to a type of yoga. You could almost relate it to a type of yoga. But I'll drop a link, for people who are interested, and I'm going to drop it in the chat for you right here as well. You can check that out later. But definitely, guys, if you are considering adopting a type of stretching program or something like this to help with your recovery, look into ELDOA. That's something you can do on your own. And then if you want to get to the next level with your kind of manual therapy and recovery, you can look into hiring someone who's certified with muscle activation techniques.
Okay, so what else so that's so we talked about, you just mentioned Aldo. Is there anything else that you do in your routine? Like, do you do massages on your off days? Is
Mhm.
that mainly left for kind of in season? Is that mainly off season? Is it all year around? What else? And what else do you do? Do you see physio or do any of that stuff?
So I do chiro once a month, sometimes twice a month if it's on prep. I do massage every other week, sometimes every week on prep. I do the Eldoa as part of my warm-up routine at the gym, not
Mm-hmm.
so much on rest days. I kind of, when it's rest days, for the most part, I just kind of chill. I do my cardio, I get my food in, um, go for a walk, that kind of stuff. So, you know, we're talking about all this rest and recovery day. I think there's a lot of things you can do. I think there's a lot of things that can benefit as well. If let's just say you're talking about someone who has an injury, something like that, it would make sense to kind of work on rehab, kind of every day, do a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But for right now, where my training is, the training on those 5 days I'm training is really intense, high volume, and I'm pretty much dead on my rest days. So I kind of, for the first time, I kind of am looking forward to having rest days,
Yeah.
because by that second or third training session, I'm like, okay, tomorrow's going to be feeling good. I'm gonna have a good day just chilling tomorrow because I'm beat
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Like that's the thing though. I think so. There's always this debate, I think, between people saying, like, again, you know, don't rest or whatever, and how much rest should you take? Um, and there's always been that debate of like people saying, like, can you overtrain? When do you overtrain? And there's always that conflict, right? Rest and overtraining and whatnot. And I think you're doing it right. Like, when you feel like it's okay to take more rest, and it does allow you to train harder. Like, when you're training, like when you're really, really pushing those boundaries, it makes it really hard to train 6 days a week even. The difference, and again, this is in my opinion, the difference is, like, when you're doing a prep, maybe you aren't training, like right now, do you train more than one body part at a time?
Depends on the day.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's one, like chest, back, and quads.
Yeah.
But like shoulders and triceps go together, hamstrings and biceps go together.
But would you train chest and back during a prep?
Together? No.
Yeah. See, so when you break up the body parts into smaller groups, or like you have like a big muscle group with a smaller muscle group, I think then you can push the boundary a little bit more and take less rest, because you're not training such big body parts, right? But to train chest, back, legs, then shoulders, tries, okay, that's not too bad. But then that's only 3 days, and you've almost hit, like, you almost hit all your body, right? You maybe have an arm day with, you probably mix with something else. So when you're training those big body parts like that, then yeah, you need to take a little bit more of a more rest on those, if you're using that type of training style.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why right now I'm doing triceps on a shoulder day and I'm doing biceps on a hamstring day. So I don't need to have an extra
Yeah.
day just to do arms.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I get you. I get
So
you. And would you say they're kind of like your easier days ish?
I would say with the training right now, it's not easier.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think it bangs up your nervous system as much as heavy squats
Yeah,
and
that's what
stuff.
I
So
meant. I know,
yeah,
by no means
yeah,
that I mean easy.
yeah,
Maybe it's a wrong choice of words, but like
yeah,
you said, yeah, maybe it's not as taxing on you, where like you leave the gym and you're just like, okay, I want to just fucking die for the next 3 days. Maybe you feel like you want to die for like the next hour, two
yeah,
hours,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
you're tired, but you can make it. Have you
yeah.
tried like that cryo bath or whatever they call it? I can't remember the name right now.
Yeah, so cryotherapy was something that
Cryotherapy,
I
yeah.
was like really interested in because there was a place near my old gym that I was like really considering going to try.
I want to
But
try it too.
I just found like, I looked into it a little bit and I was like, this is really expensive. It's like $75 for
Yeah,
whatever. I don't even know. It's like 10 minutes or something, right? So
yeah,
it seemed really expensive and I didn't end up doing it. Um, but I've definitely seen people do it and say, there's good results. But it's kind of interesting because now there's all this new kind of science around like how ice is like not good for recovery and how you shouldn't ice injuries. And
hmm
so I don't know if that completely disregards cryotherapy is legitimate recovery tool, but
I don't know enough. I don't know enough about it, and I haven't tried it myself. But I'm kind of in the same boat as you, where I've heard people say that it does like wonders, but it's so tough to say with that. Some of that stuff, I think a lot of people, there's like this major placebo around some of that stuff. There's this thing I watched on what show was it? Oh, fuck, what show was it? Oh man, it's a really cool show. They do like these really cool experiments on Netflix. And they had this guy in the room, or they had a bunch of people in the room, and they took like this like light basically and like shined it on people's skin, and they're like, oh, this is going to feel really, really painful. This is the interesting part.
Oh, I watched it. Yeah.
Yeah. So to pain,
yeah.
like they didn't feel anything. They're like, no, I'm not feeling anything.
Yeah.
But then when they switch the experiment, because they're like, man, this is not like really getting us anything. When they switch the experiment to a pleasure sensation, they're like, oh,
everybody liked it.
Everybody liked it. And they're like, it was just a fucking light. Like it really did nothing at all.
That's so funny because it's probably like a really good example of what cryotherapy is, because you feel something, right? So then you're coming out there, you're freezing cold. You're probably like,
I feel
lit up, right?
So fresh.
So
you're
fresh.
Like nothing. There's been no type of like cellular change at all. The only thing is that you're cold. You might have some blood circulation, but you could just take a cold shower for that.
Exactly. And if there was anything that was happening, physiologically to you, it would be very acute. It would wear off so quickly that I don't know if it would be even beneficial at all, really, in the long run. Yeah. So just like, in that experiment you said where they did like that, they put that light on them and asked if it was pleasurable. Then they asked if they would pay for this. And
oh my God.
They were like, yeah, I would pay for this.
Thing.
This is great.
this one guy was like, oh my God, this like changed my life.
Yeah.
I was just like, buddy, you look so stupid. Can you imagine doing that experiment and then watching it after?
Yeah.
I would just go in a corner and slip my wrist. I'm like, the whole world knows I'm an idiot now.
Amazing what placebo can do, though. You're right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's the thing with like, even I find like working out, a lot of people say, oh, like this feels like good, or I can really feel this. And like feeling can lie to you. Like feeling what you feel is not really always correct. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like you could be doing like, I know I have clients that, let's say they're training biceps or doing something with their biceps for a second. And they're like, oh, I really feel this in my tricep. And I'm like, well, that's an antagonist muscle, right? Mm-hmm. So like when you're curling, you can't really feel it in your tricep. Maybe in the relaxed position, maybe, right? Yeah. Or maybe in like a preacher curl because you're holding that weight there statically at the bottom, maybe. But that's right. People will say that the things that feel good and like it's just a complete sack of bullshit. So that brings me to something else. I don't want to get too off track. It brings me to something else. If you're getting like massage, like how, like when you get massage work done, or when you get like physio, like do you see the same person?
Yeah, I have the same chiropractor, same massage guy.
Yeah, because there's some people that just kind of like jump around on whatever, and I think it's the kind of like the same. I say treat it the same way you treat a coach. Give that person time to learn your body. Like give them time to learn the tendencies of what your body wants to do, right? They come in one time, you go into them one time, they may fix you, they may not, but don't just like go to somebody else now. Like try to see that same person and let them work on you continuously and try and learn the patterns of your body. I don't know if enough people do that.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want someone that you can trust, someone that you can build up a good relationship with. They have to definitely care about you, like if you're going to be seeing someone on a continuous basis, you want to, just like with a coach, you want to be able to feel like you can communicate with them very easily. And they should show like a genuine care in their treatment for you. So definitely, I mean, with the chiropractor that I've been seeing him for the past 3 years. From the massage therapist, he's a good friend of mine. I've been seeing him for the past 2 years consistently. So yeah, definitely when you get to know somebody and they get to know you, they can do even better work. So over time it compounds, just like with the coach. As they start to learn your body, a massage therapist or a chiropractor can learn your body and make the treatment more effective over time.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think? Well, I would say, what do you think is the most overlooked part of recovery, or the thing that people don't consider or don't do? I have mine, so I want to just see what you say.
Okay. The most overlooked part of recovery is just not taking those rest days. I know I've fallen guilty to that myself, thinking that I have to train today, because if I don't train today, I'm not stimulating the muscle, and therefore I'm not going to grow. But it's literally the direct opposite of that, is that you've already put the work in and you have to take that rest day so you can grow. So again, that might have been something that held me back in the past, trying to train 6 days a week, being an ectomorph.
Yeah.
And
You're an
being
ectomorph? Jesus Christ.
well, I started out as an ectomorph, but I think all the things that we do to our bodies changes everything we eat, everything we take supplement wise, every muscle fiber, all of that stuff is changing the way our DNA is being expressed. So, I'm obviously not the same person as I used to be, so I couldn't say I'm an ectomorph now. But when I started, I was an ectomorph. I had a hard time gaining weight and a hard time getting muscle, and it was just because I was training too much and probably not eating enough either.
Yeah. So, like, to all of our viewers, if you're a little on the slimmer side right now, it's possible to get thick like my man here. Right?
It just takes years of consistent effort.
Yeah. It's funny. So, like you said, not taking rest days. Yeah, absolutely. The biggest part of rest days, or the biggest drawback, would be not taking them. And I think it's, people know, like, muscles don't grow, we don't get stronger without that rest, but they just still overlook it. And I tell my clients, like, it's almost like being like a construction worker, and or like even renovating your house, right? And you can't just like knock walls down all the time, right? You can't just knock walls down. You got to lay the bricks and let them settle, or else that foundation is just shit, right? I find, if I'm going to say my biggest, I think the things that people overlook the most on recovery days is water and nutrition. So like I said, like, I know days that I've, not been on, I've, finished my training, or I've had an off day. And if I decided, I'm going to have a drink today, and that turns into a couple, like, my next workout is shit. Mm-hmm. So think of it this way, guys. Like, I drive a sports car. There's a reason why it takes like high octane fuel in there. If you want your body to be functioning right, you have to give it the material that it needs. You have to give it the fuel that it needs. And that includes your off days. Right? So you can't just treat it like shit and just kind of disregard like what you're eating just because you're not going to the gym. And then the second thing, like I said, is water. Like, you want to replenish your water, get your water back into the muscle. A lot of people don't know, like, water helps avoid injury too. So while you're healing and everything, you want to replenish all of that, your electrolytes, get your water back in yourself, get yourself hydrated. So for the next time that you step into the gym, you're ready to fire it up. Those are my two, I think, things that people overlook the most about rest days. Yeah. Like, it's not a time to just cheat and fuck off on your diet. You still need to adhere to something. Maybe if you want to have, like, depending on where you are, who you are, maybe you can have a meal. Just don't go off the rails and think that it's a day that, like, I can just trash my diet.
Right. Yeah, it's still got to be a productive day. So just like you said, if you want to maximize your gains, the results that you're getting from your training efforts, you have to make sure that you focus on your hydration levels and focus on your nutrition on your rest days, especially more than anything else, more than even massage, more than anything else. You need to focus on your hydration and your nutrition for sure. I think that's a good, take home point there.
Yeah.
I got some questions. So some clients send me some questions. I think it'd be cool if we both answered each one. So the first question was, how do you know when you should take a rest day?
Oh man. Easy. Like I said, there's a couple of ways. Or do you want to answer this?
Hold on. I was thinking about what we just talked about. I just want to bring up something real
Okay.
quick before we get into these questions, because something that I've just started doing recently on rest days, which I think is interesting, is that I'm doing my refeed days or my
Mhm.
high carb days on my rest days now, which is something that I've never done before. I've
Mhm.
always done refeed days on training days.
On a training day, yeah.
And I can definitely say that, after a couple days of low carb, you're definitely dragging a little bit in the gym. But
Mhm.
when I have that rest day and I have a high carb day on a rest day, when I'm going into the gym the next day, I feel much more powerful. And it's almost guaranteed that my lifts and my training intensity will be through the roof on that day.
Right. And I'm 100% for that. You want to replenish like your glycogen and whatever, but like I think I don't want people, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I don't want people to get the wrong impression that just because it's a high carb day, it means he's eating like shit. He's just having a high carb day. Am I
Yeah, so
right?
my high carb day is the same thing that I eat on non-high carb days.
It's just
The
more
only
carbs.
difference, yeah, it's basically twice the amount of carbs. I have some red meat instead of fish,
Hmm.
and I think I have a little bit more fats, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's I often when I coach people that like that's once in a while, depending on where they are, who they are, that's when I'll tell them like have your refeed or up your carbs, have a high carb day and take the day off. Right.
Hmm.
If you want, you can do I don't even I try to ask them not to even run on that day, but that's okay. I'm okay if you want to do your cardio on that day. I prefer you not do it on that day, but if you want to, sure, whatever.
Because you can do it fasted and then just start eating after that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's ways around it and whatever, right?
Yeah.
What were we
So,
talking about before?
so how do you know
Oh
when you
yeah,
should take a rest day?
yeah. Okay, so for me, there's two ways that I think I can think of off top, or well, maybe three. So one being like you're just like mentally checked out.
Hmm.
And I don't want people to think, oh, like you're a pussy or whatever. Like it does happen. We're human beings. Like you can start getting this checked out and lose focus. I would say you have to really question yourself. Did you work hard though? Like, did you really work hard and put in that time and effort? Um, the second is injuries. If you notice, like, one injury is like, okay, or not, I shouldn't say injury, but like, yeah, injury. If there's like your shoulders tweaked, okay, cool. Your hips, a little sore, just not moving right. Now I'm starting to question on the third thing. If once there's a third problem now, it's time to take a break, right? It's time to take a break and or maybe like scale it back even for a couple of days, right? That's the second thing. And then the last would be is if you notice like you just don't have the strength anymore, then it's time to take a day off.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I take a rest day, it's because it's scheduled into my program.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number one, is if you have a program and it's giving you rest days, you have to take those rest days, regardless of if you like it or not. And I think it really depends on the person too, when you should know when you need a rest day,
Yeah.
because some people might not be training hard enough
Yeah.
to need the rest day, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
and some people might be training too hard and they're actually overtraining and they need more rest. So
Yeah.
it really does depend on who you are, what you're doing, what your goal is, and also consider like your lifestyle, like other factors like
Yeah.
stress, like sleep. All those things are going to compound your need for a rest day. If you're not sleeping, you're stressed out because of work, and you're training 5 days a week, you're probably going to need a rest day more than someone who's working from home, training, at home 3 days a week with body weight. It's just different scenarios. So I think
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if you are not enthusiastic about going to the gym that day, and you are normally someone who loves going to the gym that day, then you need a rest day. And that happens to me. If I'm training too much, like you said, you kind of just get that mental fatigue. And that's also something that can happen near the end of a prep. but at that point you have no
You
choice.
don't
You
have a
just have to
choice. You
push
got to
through it.
go. You got to push. You
Yeah.
got to put the foot
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
You mentioned sleep, and we didn't really talk about that.
Yeah.
Studies, like I know I've read some studies, and I don't know what your sleep schedule is like, but I think the best prep that I had, I was sleeping like 8-9 hours at night.
Hmm.
I'd go do my cardio, come back, eat, like chill for a little bit, then sleep again, and then go to the gym. So I was getting like 10, sometimes 11 hours of sleep. And I know that's not possible for everyone, but if you're an athlete, if you're trying to be an elite athlete and there's the time to do it, I highly suggest it. Like
Hmm.
that's the studies show, like 8 studies say, I don't know how, there's other conflicting studies that 8 hours is like, they're required or not required, but like the recommended amount. I would say if you're an elite athlete, try and get more. Try and
Hmm.
get like 9-10.
Hmm. Because 8 hours is what you need for your brain to do the recovery that it needs.
Right.
But that's not necessarily looking into the recovery that your body needs. So when you are talking about sleeping for a good solid 8 hours overnight, and then waking up doing cardio, coming back, eating, napping, going to the gym, that's essentially what it takes to, get to a pro level in bodybuilding. So that's really like, if you consider that, that is, it's a lot of dedication. Um, but that is seriously what it takes, right? Because
Yeah.
you might even have to go back a third time to
Yeah.
the
Oh,
gym.
yeah. And
So
like but it was such a good prep for me. I felt good. Like my workouts were incredible.
yeah,
I just grew because I was resting all the time. I
yeah,
just grew so much, man. It was just such a positive prep.
yeah,
Um,
dude, I love preps like that. I love when you have the ability to really just focus on and
oh
getting
my
the job
God.
done, but also giving yourself the time to like nap and chill during the day. It can really, really boost you through that, like especially
Man,
like during the last couple of weeks. But there's something that actually, when you're doing that kind of lifestyle, you have to really incorporate the other components of bodybuilding too. Like you have to start working on your posing practice. You have to start working on your routine and stuff like that. You have to start that early, because if you kind of get into that lifestyle where all your focus and all your energy is going into the cardio and the training, then you don't have much time, or you don't have much energy left
you
to actually
nailed it.
focus on doing that posing and stuff. So like I've waited until 4 weeks out to start working on
I
posing,
did
and
the
it's too
exact
late.
same thing. 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Exact
Yeah.
same
So
thing. I was
so
getting a
by
lot of
by
rest. I went
that
to four
point,
weeks.
you're too tired to really start mentally putting a lot of effort into a posing routine. I would
Mhm.
recommend starting at least 8 weeks out, or at least sooner if possible. And that's just one of the ways that you can get ahead of your prep. So you're not trying to do things last minute. So you're not looking like you're unprepared when you're on stage.
So okay, so two-part question back. I'm going to fire back at you. Would you do your posing on your rest days? And if you're starting 8 weeks out, how do you structure that? Is like, do you just start off like, okay, I'm going to do 10 minutes, then go up to, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Okay, now I'm going to start working on my routine. How do you structure it? That's what I normally do. I start off with like,
Yeah.
10, 15 minutes. Um, and then
Um,
I'll bump it up to like 30 minutes like twice a week with the still like the 10 minutes in there, and I just keep increasing it incrementally. And then around like 4 or 5 weeks, like I pick my song and kind of have an idea what I want to do and start going over routine and start creating my routine, and then I'm mastering that routine in the last 2-3 weeks, and then I'm going through posing and like actually doing posing rounds in like the last 2-3 weeks.
mhm. I usually start most preps. I start doing mandatory posing for an hour, usually about 8 weeks out.
Wow.
This year, I'm doing a little earlier just because I have more free time right now. So on my rest days, once a week, I'm going to pose with Fidel Clark. And I always pose with Fidel Clark because he can kind of push me as hard as, actually, he pushes me harder than I push myself. So it's kind of like
Mhm.
having a trainer in the gym where, you can
Yeah.
get, you can get, another 2 or 3 reps out of someone if you're training them and you have a good spotter.
Mhm.
And it's the same thing with posing. Like I'll go in there and I'll mentally I'll be like, okay, I'll do 5 rounds. Let's do 5 rounds, but I'll end up doing like, 8 or 9. And
And he makes
eventually,
you hold those poses for a while, eh?
yeah. So eventually the goal is to first take less rest between each pose or each each segment of poses. So every time you go through the mandatory poses, okay, take a quick breather and then we do it again. So I'm trying to reduce the time. Basically, I'm trying to reduce the time of rest between each set, and then I'm also trying to hold each pose longer in each set. So every time we go through each pose, maybe you start off by holding it for 2 seconds, but really on stage you need to be able to hold it for at least a minute. So you got to really work through each pose, holding them, being comfortable there. And it's definitely not fun when you're starting off where I am right now at like 285 pounds. But you know what, honestly, I think by doing it earlier right now, I'll be way ahead of the game, because like I said, I kind of waited too long last time. I wasn't 100% happy with my posing routine. I think that my posing, because I work with Fidel and he's always, he's got his eyes on me when I'm doing my posing. So I'm always on point when it comes to mandatories, but I still think that posing, doing the free posing is a really important part of bodybuilding. So, a goal for myself is just to continue improving that. And that is something I would do probably on a different day altogether. So
On an off day?
the day, yeah, like the day that I'm really working on mandatory poses with Fidel, I'm just focused on that. And I'm just trying to like grind it through like a workout. And then on the day that I do kind of like a free posing, I don't really consider that like, it's not too difficult, whereas posing, mandatory posing can be quite difficult. I don't find that free posing is difficult. So I kind of just use that like on a rest day, that can be a fun thing to do, like for a recovery day. Just go into the studio and just mess around, listen to some music and get inspired, and just, not really have any expectations just yet, because you can kind of just start feeling it out when you start early enough, and then it develops and you can create some really wonderful art that way. Whereas if you just try to throw something together in the last 2 weeks, it always comes off kind of rushed and choppy. So we got a little bit off topic there, but whatever.
So that to answer that,
Yeah.
hopefully we answered the question of when you should take a rest day.
Yeah. So when you should take a rest day, you got to take a rest day when it's on your schedule or when you need one, when you feel like you need one. So we talked about rest frequency in off season versus a contest prep.
Yep.
So we can skip that one. But here's one. How can we improve sleep?
I think we talked about that in a previous episode. I know. Okay, so there's a couple of things. No coffee, obviously.
The whole day or after a certain period of time?
Yeah, after like a certain period of time. So I would say after like 5, 6 in the evening, I try not to have any coffee. I try to, if possible, get my workout done before like 6, 7 as well, and my cardio, if possible. What else do? I try not to have any light. I don't have a TV in my room at all. I don't want my room is for sleeping and for like adult time. Like that's what it should be, I think, for people. Technically. So I try not to have like a TV in my room, or I never have. There are some supplements that you can take. You can take GABA. We talked about that. We talked about HTP5. There is magnesium that helps me as well. If you're, again, it depends if you're in season or off, because you could try CBD oil. I don't know if it's the THC that people say help. It causes you to hold water. I'm not a big smoker myself, so I'm not well versed in that, but
I do know. I do know one of the reasons why some of that might happen is because whether it's CBD oil, pure CBD, or whether it's THC and CBD, they both have an effect on the enzymes of the liver. So I don't remember the exact name of the pathway, but one of the pathways of the liver that basically absorbs oral drugs like steroids is affected by CBD oil and THC in a way that it alters the function there. So I don't know exactly what that would mean.
But it does cause you to hold water, right? It can cause you to hold water.
Yes, and I don't know if that's the reason or if it's something else, a different mechanism
Oh,
completely,
okay.
but it's definitely something to consider that if you're taking CBD oil and oral steroids, that there might be some sort of interaction there.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're not, I'm okay with CBD. So if I'm all off season, you can try that. Those are pretty much those are like my secret recipes so far.
Cool.
I normally don't have trouble sleeping. Like anybody that knows me, like I could fall asleep in a chair.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, like I don't really have a problem sleeping, but if I do, I notice that when you get later in your prep, you definitely have problems sleeping. I don't know if
Yeah,
you're like that too. When you start getting really lean, you have problems sleeping.
yeah.
So
I think that's where those naps come in so crucial because there's going to be a certain point of time where you're so lean that your body just will
doesn't
wake
need
you
it.
up. It'll wake you
Yeah.
up with adrenaline, with anticipation of getting some food in you. So
Yeah.
there's usually a point in time on prep, maybe 4 weeks out, to contest day, where I can usually only sleep for 6 to 7 hours,
Yeah.
which is still a lot better than most bodybuilders. Because
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
some guys really suffer and can only like sleep like 3 to 4. So
Yeah.
oh,
I don't know how they do that, man.
yeah, so I mean, trying to improve your sleep is a very, very individual recipe, guys.
Hmm.
And I think like creating that recipe for yourself is exactly what you need. So like what you said, what helps you might not necessarily help me, but it also might. And the only way I can know is if I can try one thing at a time and see how I feel when I wake up. So one of the best things I heard was that if you want to try something for sleep, take it, go to bed, and see how you feel when you wake up. It sounds
Yeah.
pretty simple, but that's literally what you need to do. So
Yeah.
what I recommend, definitely going back to like the whole bedroom thing, you shouldn't have too much in your room besides your bed, your nightside table, and whatever you need, in that room, which doesn't even really include your phone. So I know, like, for myself, most people, we use our phone for the alarm, but in a perfect world, you would have absolutely no Wi-Fi in your room. You probably want to unplug the Wi-Fi, turn it off before you go to bed. You probably would not want to have your phone in your room. You probably want to have airplane mode on. You probably want to make sure that you don't have even a single LED light,
Yeah.
shining, and not even a single one,
Like even
nothing.
your alarm, like those alarm clocks, like try not to have
Exactly.
if they're super bright, don't have it in there.
Exactly. So even your skin, even if you're wearing like nightshades that covers your eyes, your skin still has photoreceptors in them, so it picks up light, even if it's a very small amount of light. Studies have shown over and over again that just having a small LED light somewhere on your skin can interrupt your deep sleep, so stage 4 sleep. So that's something to consider. Definitely, you can improve your room by keeping it at a temperature that you can sleep at, your preferred temperature, which is slightly different for everybody, but generally in the colder ranges. Making sure that it's dark as possible, making sure that your bed's comfortable, making sure that there's nothing else in your bed, there's no TV, there's no distractions, and you're not trying to do other stuff, like you said, besides sex and sleep in that room.
So like you just said, like you're not trying to do anything else. I know a lot of people be
Yeah.
like they read before they go to sleep or like read in the bed if they can sleep. Like I say that's a
Yeah.
bad idea. If you
I don't
can't
know.
sleep,
I
the
don't
best thing
know.
to do is get up, leave, read, do something in a different space, and then when you're tired, go back to the bedroom because you want to keep you want to from what I've read, from my experience, you want a trigger for your body to have that trigger. When you're in the room, it means either some A's going on or B's going on.
Yeah.
You know what
I
I
know
mean?
that's something that I've read myself, that exact same recommendation that you should, if you can't sleep or you're having a hard time falling asleep, you should get up, do something that'll make you tired, and then go back to bed. But for me, I don't really like doing that. I always
Mhm.
read before bed, and I find that that's,
That
for me,
helps
the
you.
best way to doze off. I've also tried doing like binaural beats, like sleep meditation.
Yep.
I've tried out pretty much everything, guys. So I think that at the end of the day, you just have to find what works for you. And there's no like cookie cutter program for improving sleep.
Breathing definitely has helped me too before. Some breathing
Breathing,
exercises like
yeah,
box breathing, that's definitely helped me too because it brings you into the parasympathetic phase, and
yeah.
that's it. Your body just goes relaxed, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the best places to start if you're having a hard time sleeping, is just starting with what you can do on your own, which is breathing techniques.
Yeah.
Really good suggestion. Okay, so let's talk about nutrition on a rest day versus nutrition on a training day. Should it change? We kind of talked about that already.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't need to get into that too much. What are your thoughts on training twice per day? I think that's kind of something interesting we should go over.
I have mixed feelings about that.
I'll give you my opinion here because listen, like it's so individual, guys. Look at an athlete like Juan Morel. He trains twice per day, I think almost every day or like 6 times a week or something like that. Consumes a massive amount of food, always gets peeled. I don't think he does very much cardio. All right.
Mhm.
But that's not the norm at all. Most professional bodybuilders are doing what we do, which is doing cardio in the morning, training later in the day. And that's what I would say 99%, maybe not 99%, maybe 80%
Mhm.
of competitors would be doing, on their contest prep. I think that's what most people do.
Yep.
And doing twice a day training on top of that cardio, on top of all the other life stress, I think is way too much for most people. But then again, there's always those anomalies, those
The
outliers,
outliers.
right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. What do you think?
So I'm kind of in the same boat. The exception is like what you're training. And if it comes back to like, are you wasting time too though? Like, so let's say you're training, what do you do right now? Tries and shoulders?
Yeah, so my split is basically it's a 5-day split. Shoulders
Okay,
with tries,
so I mean,
triceps.
tries and shoulders is a little tricky too because like you're working your tries when you work your shoulders, but like I wouldn't be totally against splitting up something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Where like what I suggest like doing a 2-a-day where you train like your back and your legs. No, fuck no. If you've trained your back hard enough in the morning, how do you go back and have a hard training leg session? Like how? Unless you're going there for a quick pump, like which is like what are you doing that for? I mean, if you have your reasons to do that, then sure. But to go out and say, yeah, I'm legit gonna fucking fuck this gym up right now and do a leg session, there's no like you didn't train hard enough then. In the day you did not train hard enough.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you. Like I've experienced doing like 2-a-days a little bit. I mean, I've tried them on my own in the past,
Mm-hmm.
but recently, like last year we went to Ben Pakulski's seminar. So it was like a 3-day seminar. And basically, we would train in the evening as a group or whatever. But I got the opportunity to train with Ben Pakulski and Jordan Shallow in the morning. So we were doing like, whatever. We were doing back day together, us three, and then all the seminar group would train like legs later that day.
Yeah.
And, when I was going to train legs later that day, I was just like, I'm really exhausted from that training this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't think I'm going to benefit from trying to give this workout my all.
Yeah.
So,
you could like, it's not like it can't be done. It's just like, are you using your time?
Yeah.
Like
you got to be like in the gym and out of the gym in 45 minutes so you can come again later and be in and out in 45 minutes.
Exactly. And it's got to be, and it can't be super taxing on your nervous system. Like you can't be exhausted and just like completely crapped out and then you're going back to train. It doesn't make sense to me. Like if you can get back in there and like I said, like we just said, like if it's a smaller muscle group and you can go back in there and just like annihilate your arms, cool, go for it.
I think that if you can generate that type of intensity twice a day, be able to get in and out in 35 to 45 minutes, and are still able to get all the food in that you require to still be able to grow, then more power to you. But I think for general recommendation, I wouldn't even do it myself. So I don't think that training twice a day is going to give you an advantage that people think it is. Mm-hmm. Only for those very select people.
So so here's the exception, and this is what I did and I've done and it worked, but I wouldn't really consider it training. So I would go in the morning and as part of my cardio, I would do my cardio and then I would do like a 20-minute pump workout. That was part of my cardio, right? Really I
would never do that, but I would do cardio and then train abs and
Yeah.
calves.
Yeah.
I would train abs and calves in the morning after cardio and then go later and do like chest. I think that's like,
Yeah.
my extent of training twice a
Yeah.
day.
So it's like when I say workout, like it's something similar to that. Maybe I do like abs and like, I don't know, maybe like 2 sets of like a leg press for, really light sets of like 2 sets of 20. But then I'm not training legs that night, obviously. And I wouldn't, and I would try to set it up or do it in a way that I haven't trained legs the day before either. So that was kind of something in the middle. And it's just, again, just kind of bringing some blood to the muscle, but I'm not pushing myself at all.
Yeah. You're
You
not
get what I
tapping
mean?
into recovery.
It's
Yeah.
more about, yeah, I'm not tapping into my recovery, as this whole like podcast is about. It's more about just like kind of moving my body with a little bit more resistance. So it'd be equivalent to like turning up your bike to like a higher resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But nothing more than that. Like that, I don't really consider that a workout though.
Yeah. So how about signs of overtraining? How do you know if someone is overtraining?
For this, I think the same signs of overtraining is the same signs of that you need to take a rest.
Yeah.
Right?
And if somebody was overtraining, would you say that they need a full rest? Would you say they need 2 days of full rest? Would you say they need a week to deload? Would you say, how do you kind of compartmentalize someone who's overtraining into how severe it is? What would you do?
That's a kind of I don't want to make a blanket statement because there's just different things that could cover that. If it's mental fatigue, yeah, a day could be good, a day could be good, maybe a day and a half. If it's strength, maybe that training, just you have a different method of training for that week. It doesn't need to be just technically a deload, but again, maybe you just need to switch up your style of training for that week.
Yeah.
So it really depends. Like that, I'd have to really have like a specific case presented to me,
Yeah.
to kind of know what to do. Also knowing like my client or my person or me, my body, like I would have to kind of know, like, I know like I have clients that will push themselves through anything that have like a high pain tolerance. And they overtrain, and I have to be like, no, take your rest day. And it's not just like, take your rest day this week, like take your rest day consistently.
Yeah.
And then I have other clients where I'm just like, no, man, like you're not pushing yourself hard enough. So you get like 1 rest day this week.
Yeah. So from a coach perspective, when you're looking at a client, you're going to see either, no changes to their body, or you're going to see regression. And when you see those things, you're going to probably either realize, well, if they're following the program exactly as written, it just might be one of those things where they need a break from the training. They might need a mental break from the diet. There's so many variables when you're looking at different clients and how people's body responds. But when we're talking about like more specific examples, like if we're going to take myself for an example, I would like to do what you say, where you said that, just changing up the training style. So what we did, because we have limited equipment right now, we're basically just working with dumbbells and barbells, and the dumbbells only go up to whatever, 100 pounds or whatever. So, what we would do is we would basically try to make workouts as hard as possible using the weight that we have. So it's like, rather than doing a dumbbell press here, we're going to be doing a dumbbell press way out here and really focusing on bringing them together. And that can like literally drop the weight from 100 that you need to get 10 reps to like 60 that you need 10 reps. And you can start building up from there again. And then when you get to the top training in that style, you can do another deload by simply training in a different style for the next 4-week block or whatever you have set up.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like train a certain way for, let's just say, 4 to 8 weeks. Whenever I start to not make the same progress, I'm going to go into a different style of training.
That's the key right there.
Start at the bottom of that new style of training, making sure I adhere to that style of training completely before I start to increase the weight. Again, and every time you change your style of training, you might be able to start a little bit higher, but you're still starting lower than where you were when you started to change that
Exactly.
training in the first
So
place.
like, yeah, that's exactly like, I agree with that 100%. I like just had a perfect example last week. Like I was doing dumbbell flies and I don't really like dumbbell flies. That's just not an exercise I generally like, but I was just so bored with them. And it's not that I was done with my workout. I just was so bored. I'm like, I don't really want to fucking do these right now. I wanted to push myself. So my training partner, Dan, which we'll have on here at some point, Dan Bruce, he was like, why don't you do some power flies? And I was like, yeah, do some power flies. I got to turn up the weight a little bit. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm happy. Right.
Yeah.
And like, it's just that simple. Sometimes it's just, you need to change up the style. Let's not forget, like, it's like your body is adaptive too. So like, if you find that it's starting to, you're not progressing in any way, if you're not progressing through strength and you're not progressing through size, and those are your that's like your metrics, or your metric system of like what you're trying to, or how you measure your progress, then obviously like it's time to change something, right? If it's a week, like there, you have those days where you go into the gym and you're just not going to push the same weight. It's not going to feel the same for whatever reason. Like that is the one off. But if you're going in the gym every day for like a week plus 2 weeks, like, yeah, it's time to change your program, take a rest. Right.
Yeah. I don't like to change the program too frequently. I think people change in a general, blanket statement. I think people will change their programs too frequently. I don't think people will stick with the same program and same exercises long enough. But there's in the opposite, there's also too long that you can be doing the same movements and the same angles and stuff. So, like if you're doing a flat bench press and you've been doing flat bench press for the last 8 weeks, just because you switch to an incline press doesn't mean you're really doing that much different. Like you might need to change a little bit more than that.
I was just going to ask you that.
Yeah. So like you kind of have to think sometimes, like, as much as you always want to chase that progressive overload, you want to throw more weight on the bar, you also have to adopt a style of training that's fluid and dynamic. So I think that's something that kind of just occurs with experience. But for someone who has less experience, just know that if you're doing the same training program for about 4 to 8 weeks, after 8 weeks, you should probably change that training program. And until you've done at least 4 weeks of it, you still have to stick with it.
Yeah. Yep. I think you're on the money with that.
Yeah, man. So, when it comes down to just kind of wrapping things up with recovery and rest, I think it's definitely something that's not talked about enough, because it's important and crucial to your results and your gains. We covered a bunch of topics. I think that pretty much most of the topics that we can talk about when it's recovery and rest.
Yeah.
Considering the main thing is just to actually do them.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. I think it's just like almost like frowned upon, which is such like it's a really shitty mindset, right? Like, especially in bodybuilding where everything is so extreme, like people have this idea of like, and I've had it too, where it's like, oh no, like if I don't train today, like someone's going to get the one up on me. And you have to consider, you can train today, but if you train like shit, that person still gets that one up on you. And if they're going to the gym every day and training like shit because they're completely taxed, then you're going to get the one up on them, taking that rest, letting yourself build the muscle that you want, build the strength that you want, and be able to progressively overload, or in whatever facet that you're going after the next day. So it's not a negative thing. It's not, like I said, I think the paradigm needs to be shift from a rest day to a recovery day. Yeah. Right. And make it purposeful. Like there needs to be purpose. Take your saltwater baths, Epsom salt baths, get stretched, get your massages, get your meals in, get your water in, do your posing. That's a day where you have more time to do all the things that you may have missed. It's the time to kind of cross your T's and dot your I's.
That's right. And one of the things that I learned from Ben Pekulski again is the saying that you have to do today what's going to make you better tomorrow.
Yeah.
So think about it before you go to the gym today, guys. If today is supposed to be a rest day, recovery day for you, and you're still saying to yourself, I got to train today because I need to be better, it actually might not make you better. So
Yeah.
let's just we'll try to use our minds, try to get, a little bit better every day. So even that recovery day is going to make you that 1% better if you, really follow it through. So
Absolutely.
guys, if you like this episode and you like our content, please subscribe to the channels. Mike's channel, we'll leave the links down below. My channel, obviously. If you guys do like these videos, leave us a comment below. If you guys have questions for us, you can drop us a DM on Instagram. You can drop us a comment on YouTube. But we definitely appreciate you guys sending in questions.
Yep. All right. That's it for this week of Buried Under the Bar.
All right. See you guys next time.
All right. Easy.